Alright, we're on to the next set of cards from the last reveal. We're still got so many cards to go through, so let's just get right into it and see what else we have. Alright, then we have a Warlock card, 6 mana, Hand of Gul'dan. When you play or discard this, draw 3 cards. So, on stream, this looked absolutely nuts because of the fact that you can combine it with the 2 mana card that discards your most expensive card, and then when it dies, you get 2 copies back. They actually went through their whole deck so fast, and clearly they needed some heavier stuff in the deck because they ran out of juice, but the fact that you can discard this and get 3 draws for free is insane. And I definitely think it would be combined with that, I think it's some kind of merchant. I can't remember what the name is exactly. But that combo looks really good as long as your top end is less than 6 mana. So in a zoo deck of some kind with that going on, that seems really good. We have a few other discard options, but that definitely seems like the most obvious way to go with it. We already have decent zoo lineups for Warlock, so I think that this will definitely fit in there. You might not run 2 of them, you might just run 1 of them because of the fact that you're going to be duplicating it anyways or something. And as we saw, you don't want to be drawing too much, potentially, but depending on how you build the deck, it could definitely not be a problem. I think it's definitely going to see play. I think it's going to push Zoo to be a lot stronger. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Then we have a epic card, Dark Glare, 3 mana, 3/4 demon for Warlock. After your hero takes damage, refresh 2 mana crystals. So obviously you can hero power for free this way, but any other way of dealing damage to yourself is going to give you 2 mana, and that seems really good. If you have 2 of these, then hero powering literally gives you 2 mana in addition to the mana you already had. There aren't a ton of different ways to damage yourself in Warlock right now, funnily enough, but there are a few options, and I don't know which one you'd run to use this, but I think you might be able to find some cool ideas for how to get your extra mana going and fit some extra things into your turn. If you want to do a combo with this, you could play both of them, and then after you've dealt 1 damage yourself twice, you're already back up to 8 mana. If you spent 1 mana on each of them on like that AoE card perhaps, that deals 1 damage all characters. So there is potentially some combo possibilities there. I'm not sure how easy that would be to pull off. It sounds quite difficult, but if you wanted to go for that, you can definitely try it. I think you're more likely to run this in a zoo deck. There are some self-damaging options that will get you this extra mana so you can spend it on more threats from your hand and so forth. The only thing is that I'm not necessarily sure that this is that much better than other options. If you're in a zoo deck, you don't necessarily need that much more mana. It does give you that free hero power, which I like, which means that you can cycle and then grab something else and then just play it immediately. You're basically getting an extra draw with just the health cost, so that if you do start burning through too many resources, you can get some new stuff. But if you're running the Hand of Gul'dan package and you're drawing that much already, then perhaps that wouldn't even be that important either. So it is a 3 mana 3/4 with upside, so that does help it, but I don't know if it's necessarily going to be an auto include or anything like that. So I think I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Then we have a legendary for Warlock, Kanrethad Ebonlocke, 2 mana 3/2, your demons cost 1 less, and Death Rattle, Shuffle, Kanrethad Prime into your deck. So this definitely looks like a good zoo card on the starter there when you just look at it. And the Kanrethad Prime is a 8 mana 7/6 demon. Battlecry, summon 3 friendly demons that died this game. So if you were to run it in a zoo deck, you're going to be getting some probably smaller to mid-sized demons back from this. And that sounds fine if you're already getting a 7/6, so you're flooding the board pretty hard for that 8 mana. Just like a 1/1 drop is already giving you a significant amount of stats, and any more than that is going to be quite a swing for you. So that definitely sounds good to me. In a zoo deck, I think you would want to have something like this. And then potentially, you're also wanting to run this in some kind of slower, maybe hand Warlock or something like that, because it is giving you this discount for your demons. So if you have bigger demons, you can get them out earlier with this on board. And when the Prime comes down, then you're summoning really big stuff. And there is one really sick big demon that we're going to see in a little bit here that definitely seems like you'd want to run it to bring it back with the Prime for this. So definitely in a few cases I can see why you'd be running this in a few archetypes. I'm feeling like in a lot of these Prime cards that's kind of the case. Especially in Warlock, drawing your Prime is going to be probably easier than almost any other class. So you will consistently get it off after this has died. So, I mean, as long as you're running demons in a Warlock deck, which of course you are, right? Especially right now when every class is running a lot of demons probably, because we're getting flooded with them. I think this card's going to be really good. I am going to give it 5 stars. And we have Nightshade Matron, 4 mana, 5/5 rush for Warlock. It's a demon, and Battlecry, discard your highest cost card. So obviously this is designed to, again, discard the Hand of Gul'dan so that you can trigger it and draw more. A 4 mana 5/5 rush is definitely a very good card, and if the Battlecry is an upside, which as long as you have those Hands of Gul'dan it will be, then this is going to be great. So I can see it definitely fitting into that deck. I can't see it fitting into any other deck where you're going to be not wanting to be discarding your highest cost cards. Those are normally going to be the most impactful cards you have, and not just a card that you want to be discarding, like Hand of Gul'dan is. So if the Hand of Gul'dan Zoo Warlock works, then this will work. Otherwise, it probably won't work. I feel pretty good about the Hand of Gul'dan Zoo deck. I think I'll give this one 4 stars. And then this is the Warlock card I was mentioning earlier that's going to be very good for bringing back as a demon. 8 mana, 5/7 demon, Enhanced Dreadlord. Taunt and Death Rattle, summon a 5/5 Dreadlord with Lifesteal. So we're seeing so many of these really sick cards that have these strong first bodies followed by a Death Rattle to give you a strong second body. This is a 5/7 taunt, and you're getting a 5/5 lifesteal. Definitely in any slower Warlock deck, any handlock or anything like that, you're going to want this in there, because this is a very defensive card that has lots of stats. You're getting 12 stats on the front and 10 stats afterwards. So that's 22 stats. Again, almost a 10 drops worth, because normally you have 12 for 10 drop you think of, right? So 24 stats for 10 drop. This is almost there, and it's got the taunt, and it's got the lifesteal. This seems so strong, and if you ever manage to revive this with your Kanrethad, then you're getting hopefully the first part and not necessarily the second part, but maybe even both, it would be fine. But yeah, that's just so many stats. I think that this would be very powerful in keeping you alive once you've been putting up with a lot of damage and threats earlier on, and then you're trying to come back with this. That 5/5 lifesteal is going to get you lots of health, and especially with cards like these, if they have trouble dealing with the first body, then the second body might still stick, right? The only concern I can think of is that a slower Warlock might not be able to keep up in this meta because things might just be getting too fast, and that's definitely a concern. So I'm just going to give this 4 stars, but I am very impressed by this card. Then we have some more priest cards here. 5 mana, Psyche Split. Give a minion +1/+2 and summon a copy of it. You're buffing it and you're summoning a copy. There's so many copy a minion cards in this set, it's literally crazy. I think this is the 3rd one that we've got in this expansion, if not more than that. I can't even remember at this point. But this one is definitely meant to be in a deck where you're buffing your minions and you're duplicating those buffs by creating a new copy and such like that. So this looks really sweet in a deck like that where you're doing those buffs and stuff. You're going to want something decently sized to be duplicating with this though, because it is 5 mana. So obviously the 1/2 kind of makes up for the first mana, so it does end up just being another 4 mana duplication basically at that point. So as long as the minion you are duplicating is at least worth that 4 mana, then you'll be happy. If it's a 5-drop or more, or something that has accumulated to the point of being a 5-drop or more, that's going to be good. I don't know necessarily how easy it'll be for you to keep something stuck like that long in Priest, but this is definitely an option in a Res Priest or something as well, just because you want to duplicate things maybe. We had a couple other duplication options in Priest, which was the Silence one, as well as the Vivid Nightmare, which would give you the 1 health copy, but this one doesn't have either of those drawbacks. It only has an upside of the extra stats. So getting another copy of a very impactful minion would definitely be good in Priest in a lot of cases. The only problem is that it might not find a slot. It might be a little too expensive for some of these buff-based decks, and you might not need it in like a Res Priest or anything like that. I'm gonna give it 3 stars, I think. I don't recall exactly what I rated the other duplication cards, but I'm feeling like all of them are probably around that 3-star rating, just because they all have this awkwardness of you need to have that minion on the board already before you play this, and if that's the case, then you're normally going to need it to have stuck from the last turn. Might not be that easy in this meta, we'll see, but yeah, let's give it 3 stars for now. And then we have Skeletal Dragon, an epic card for Priest. 7 mana, 4/9 dragon, of course, with taunt, and at the end of your turn, add a dragon to your hand. So this is definitely a much slower dragon card. Definitely pushes the dragon priest archetype, but in a much more slower value-oriented direction, and obviously it snowballs quite a bit if you get to keep it on board, and it'll keep giving you more and more dragons. It does have that 4 health, so it is protected from other priest removals. That's definitely something to consider, especially since Zephyrus is going to have access to all those priest removals that they have. And having that high health in priest is definitely good. You can keep healing it back, hopefully. It might still be a little bit hard to build this dragon priest, but we do have a lot of dragons from Descent of Dragons. And we got another dragon in Galakron's Awakening. I think that this card will probably see play in some pre-sec of some kind. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. And then we have a common card, 1 mana, Renew, restore 3 health, discover a spell. So this, in addition to the next spell that we're going to see in a sec, both of them are definitely the spells I wanted to be seeing to push this this buff priest type of thing and help that one card we saw previously, the Sethic Spellweaver, I think it's called, to try and power up priests' low mana buff type of cards that they can hopefully cycle through and stuff like that. So you're getting a heal on your minion, which is definitely something you want in priest, right? And then discovering a spell, potentially another card like this, potentially even this card, to keep cycling it as you go through. So I think this is going to fit in a lot of decks. Discovering a spell is always good, and especially in priest where they have some really strong spells now. I think just getting that health back and getting the chance to get another potentially powerful option for the situation that you're in is just really good. I think you're going to see this in most pre-secs, honestly. I'm going to give this 5 stars. And then we have Apotheosis, another common card for priest. 3 mana, give a minion +2/+3 and lifesteal. So we're seeing a lot of lifesteal in priest. It makes it so that if you want to use your hero power, you're more likely going to be using it on your minions because of the fact that you're continually healing from all this lifesteal you're going to be having on the minions on the board. So your health total won't be going down, but your minions will be. So that's where you're going to want to be using your hero power on. So I definitely like that concept. And this 2/3 buff on a minion is also very good. It's perhaps a little bit lower than it could have been because of the lifesteal, because it could have been like a 3/3 buff or something. But I think that's definitely worth it in a lot of cases. So this is really that one buff spell that I was looking for to make me more confident in the buffing archetype of priest and this whole tempo early game type of investment that you're going into. This might not necessarily work out that well if we don't have some sort of tempo priest type of deck that ends up in the meta. But I think it's also possible that you might just want to throw this onto any minion in a slower priest deck just to get that life back and be pushing it on the board at the same time. So again, it looks like we have a lot of priest spells that fit in a lot of situations and are just going to help you in a lot of ways. I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Now we have some hunter cards that look pretty sweet. So this first one, and all of them honestly, are showing us that the beast buff archetype is definitely going to be the archetype that we're going towards with the new hunter this expansion. So the first one is Hellbore, is a common card for hunter, 1 mana, 2/1 beast, death rattle, give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. So a 2/1, and you get a extra 1/1, so that's like 3/2 of stats from this card. And in a deck where all of your beasts are going to really be benefiting from having those extra stats, this is going to be very important and impactful. So I really like it. And this is another death rattle that you can grab with that Mok'Nathal Lion that we saw previously. Clearly this is a 1 mana card with a much smaller death rattle, so it would be much less impactful, but this definitely fits into that deck. Although there is that one consideration that it is both eating those buffs as well as not having as impactful of a death rattle for that synergy. So I can definitely see you not running this because it might not be strong enough. You might not want all those stats to be on this instead, but at the same time, having a 1-drop is always nice. And if you're not going to be running this, you're probably still going to want a beast, because you're going to have a lot of the good 1-drops for Hunter be beasts. Maybe you run some non-beast 1-drops and stuff like that. But I still think this looks fine. Yeah, if you're buffing beast in your hand and this is a beast in your hand, it just might not be the one that you want to have. But if you keep it on your opener and you don't draw into the other one, then that might not be a problem or anything, right? It's just that this one beast buff card isn't blowing my mind, so I think I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Then we have Scrap Shot, a rare card for Hunter. 4 mana, deal 3 damage, give a random beast in your hand +3/+3. So deal 3 damage is worth about 2 mana. So the second part of the effect is the other 2 mana. So while 2 mana for a randomized beast buff is a little bit iffy, versus like the Scavenger's Ingenuity being 2 mana and you're tutoring the beast and giving it 3 mana. So this is definitely a little weaker, and obviously though you're bundling 2 effects, this card is definitely slower than the other options, but it's at the same time going to be run because you need that critical mass of cards that buff your beast, right? The more you have these cards, the more buffs you get on those beasts that need them, the stronger that archetype will get. And at least with this, you're both being able to do removal or even push for face damage, as well as get this going. So this is definitely going to be in that beast buffing archetype. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. And then we have a secret for Hunter, rare card, Pack Tactics. 2 mana secret. When a friendly minion is attacked, summon a 3/3 copy. So clearly this is a Death Rattle synergy card, and clearly the Death Rattles that we're going to be seeing are related to this beast buffing archetype. So many of these Hunter cards are devoted to this archetype. I can't imagine it not working, since they're giving it so much support. And this card definitely looks really cool to help that archetype as well. You are getting a 3/3, and it's probably a 3/3 copy of something you want in your deck already, because it's something that you had on your board. So they'll remove the original one, but you'll still get to keep this new one, and potentially in some cases that works in different ways, where it might have some powerful on-board effect or something like that that makes you really want to keep it on board, and then getting a 3/3 copy of it means that they'll have to remove it twice instead of once. But I think just in general, in Hunter decks that run secrets, this is going to be a good one for sure. You might need to try to build your deck a little bit better towards getting more value out of this kind of stuff, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if you just got a 3/3 out of it. That's still 3/3 for 2 mana overall. It's just a little bit delayed, and that's fine. So I think it'll be a good card. I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars. We have a couple more Demon Hunter cards left here. Immolation Aura. 2 mana, common card, deal 1 damage to all minions twice. So here's another board clear for Demon Hunter. They have quite a few now after we've seen all of these. So 2 damage twice means that you can clear out some things with Death Rattles, summon their potentially 1/1 tokens inside, and then clear that out too. So 2 damage to everything is often a 3 mana cost, and this is 1 damage twice, which is probably better in most cases, especially if we no longer have Acolyte of Pain in Standard anymore. Although this might have been a good synergy card if you were running Acolyte of Pain. But if your opponent did, then you definitely wouldn't want to be doing this to them. So this looks really, really good. This is going to be a great board clear early on. I think in any slower Demon Hunter deck where you're going to want a board clear, this is going to be really good. I think it's just going to be such a solid board clear. I'm going to give this 5 stars. And then we have Nether Walker, another Demon Hunter common card. 2 mana, 2/2, Battlecry, discover a demon. So we saw them on stream using this as a early game option in a large demon deck so that they had something to play early and then they could potentially discover more demons that would be large and so forth. The only thing about that is we just gotten such an influx of demons this expansion that there's going to be so many of them. Not a lot of them necessarily fit into that archetype if that's where you wanted to put this. In the same way, if you wanted to put this in a faster Demon Hunter deck, you don't necessarily find something that fits into that either. The thing is, you might not have a lot of better options for early game stuff to run in a Demon Hunter deck that is going towards late game, and this isn't a demon itself, which is important for that because you don't want to be cheating this out or getting your discount on it or anything like that in that large demon list. So while I think that having so many demons in one expansion might make this a lot weaker, hopefully enough of them are good enough that in your average discover pool you're going to be getting 1 or 2 good options to pick from. But it definitely doesn't look incredibly powerful. But I do think it's got some possibility to get run, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. Then we've got some Shaman cards. First one is Marshspawn, 3 mana, 3/4 elemental. Battlecry, if you cast a spell last turn, discover a spell. So this is a card in this casting spell Shaman that we've seen multiple options for the other cards that can fit into this. Another card that's going to push that archetype. Definitely having you discover a spell helps you continue to cast spells, perhaps. It's still really weird trying to picture how this works, how often you'll be casting spells, when you'll be casting spells. 2 of the spell casting synergy cards have been minions now, so they might be breaking your chains and such like that, so you'll have like off turns potentially, unless you have cheaper things in between and stuff like that. I definitely like the idea of a 3 mana 3/4 that discovers a spell though. That seems really good, really strong upside. I think we'll definitely be able to fit this into some Shaman deck. We have plenty of Shaman spells to work with, and a lot of them are quite strong. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be a super spell-heavy deck. As long as you have quite a few spells, you should be able to get these off on a semi-consistent basis, as long as you're being somewhat conscious of when you're casting your spells. I think you're probably going to want to run this in a lot of different Shaman decks. Even after all of the Shaman cards we've seen, I still really don't know what Shaman's going to be doing in this next expansion. It's not incredibly clear. Shaman was in a bad position before, and now none of these cards are blowing my mind, honestly. Just because I'm still not really sure what direction Shaman might go, and obviously most directions that Shaman can go, well, they're probably going to be casting some spells. And I'm just going to give this 3 stars. Then we have Serpent Shrine Portal. So these portals that we saw in Karazhan, I guess, are coming back to some degree. This is 3 mana, deal 3 damage, summon a random 3-cost minion, overload 1. So this definitely looks like a very good card. You're dealing 3 damage, which, as we mentioned earlier, is a 2 mana effect, and then you're getting a random 3-cost minion, which is kind of another 2 mana effect. So it is 4 mana, and you're doing the overload, so you are paying 4 mana, just not all at once. So this definitely seems like a fine option. You'll probably be running this in quite a few Shaman decks, just to get that early removal with some body attached to it, which obviously bundling these things together is always a good thing. I find it hard to believe that we won't be running this in some shaman deck here or there. So I'm going to give this 4 stars. Then we have Totemic Reflection, 3 mana, give a minion +2/+2. If it's a totem, summon a copy of it. So we've seen no totem synergy anytime recently, except for this card. This is the only totem synergy card we've seen in forever. The +2/+2 is not worth it on a regular minion. On a totem, just your hero power totem, is that really worth it to run an entire card for it? No, it's not. This is 1-star card. We're not running this card. Then we have a rare card for Shaman. 4 mana, give your minions Death Rattle, resummon this minion. So if you can get some large size minions on your board and follow up with this, that could be really insane. Honestly, thinking about it, do we still have access to a lot of those big shaman things? Because maybe this goes into like a big shaman or something, and that could be really cool to see. They were running it in like a Galakron shaman on the stream, and a lot of these other things, which I don't know if that really made much sense. 4 mana is quite a bit to do this with, so like you can't really use this with buffs and stuff, because you're bringing back the original copies of the minions. So you're gonna want minions with decent baseline stats. If we do have a evolve shaman like we've seen with the other things, then this might fit into that kind of a thing, where you somewhat cheaply set up a board of relatively large minions and then throw this on there, and then they'll be coming back again. But that's just hard to see too. Like, this is pretty expensive, but it is a really big effect. I'm just still trying really hard to figure out what shaman's going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it. Like, none of these cards are obvious on how they mesh together. But that resummon effect does seem really good. I think without a clear direction, it's definitely possible that this will find some way to fit into something. Like, if you brought back 2, like, 3-drops, you wouldn't feel terrible about playing this or anything like that, right? I think just because the format is a little difficult to get into your turn a lot of the time, and try and build a board before that might be really difficult for Shaman going forward. I'm going to give this 3 stars. We actually have only a few more class cards left. We have Overgrowth for Druid, 4 mana common card, gain 2 empty mana crystals. So for 1 mana more than Wild Growth, you're getting double Wild Growth. So that seems really good. I don't know if you'd want to run Wild Growth. Probably not. This is probably just a better option than that. This is the same effect that you get as your secondary choice on Nourish. And now that Nourish was also nerfed, like all these cards got nerfed, Nourish and Wild Growth, that makes this look a lot better than both of those cards. You might still run this with Breath of Dreams, which is definitely a lot better than either of those other options that we had. So with Breath of Dreams and Overgrowth, you could play Breath of Dreams on 2, play Overgrowth on 4. Now you're 3 mana ahead of your opponent, and you drew a card. Seems really good. I think Ramp Druid is definitely sounding like a good idea, and I was talking about it previously with a lot of these other Druid cards. It felt like Ramp Druid was something that they were pushing at, and now that we have another Ramp card, it just makes a lot more sense. I think getting these 2 mana crystals this early is really powerful effect. I think Ramp Druid is definitely going to see play because of this card, and potentially this goes in Big and Druid and stuff like that too. So I'm going to give this one 5 stars. Then we have Bog Beam, 3 mana common card for Druid. Deal 3 damage to a minion, cost 0 if you have at least 7 mana crystals. So now this is a 1 mana effect, basically, because we have Holy Smite now doing 3 damage to minions for 1 mana. But you're spending 3 mana for it unless it's after turn 7. So it's a really small effect anyways, and you're not going to want to pay for that effect for 3 mana before it's 7 mana. It's so weird seeing these cards that are supposed to be free once you've ramped up. They really don't make any sense at that state of the game. They're so low impact that you'd rather be playing much bigger things, unless you've been drawing a lot of cards and you can just throw these away as extra buffs and stuff. But we haven't seen any reason to believe that that's what Druid's going to be doing. So for the same thing that I said with Ironbark, I'm saying that this again looks like a auctioneer type card, so maybe it fits into an auctioneer deck because it's a 0 mana spell, and it's definitely not a bad effect for 0 mana for sure. It's just really strange that it takes so long to go off like this. So I'm gonna give this one 2 stars. Then we have a Warlock card, Unstable Fellbolt. 1 mana, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion and a random friendly one. Of course, Warlock getting this effect that has the same effect as some other cards that other classes have, but has a downside anyways. I don't know if dealing that 3 damage is going to be so important that you want this in here with this downside. I think this is clearly only here because maybe they were worried that Zoo would try and run a card like this, or maybe it's trying to work off of some sort of death rattle egg self-sacrificing type of idea where you want to remove your own minions. I don't know what archetype that would be, so I don't think that's the case. I think it's just that it can't hit your own minion if you don't have your own minion. So clearly you could run this in a control list and it would be basically the same as a Holy Smite for Priest, but now you have just this non-downside that's in there just in case, just to give the Warlock more trouble. So I think it looks okay. You might need this kind of effect to deal with early game threats. We don't really have something like this in Warlock right now, so it definitely seems like it could be something run. Though I'm not certain that it will. That this drawback may be a little bit too bothersome, but I definitely think it might fit into a slower, more control-oriented Warlock deck. I'll give this 3 stars. Then we have Star Scryer, a 2-drop for Mage. So 2 mana, 3/1, Death Rattle, draw a spell. So the effect of drawing a spell seems fine in Mage. It's just that that's a tutor effect, right? But in Mage, you're running so many spells that you're definitely not certain what you're going to be drawing here. It's definitely not a narrow enough tutor effect for you to expect anything specific. So then you're getting this general draw a card effect. Maybe you'll have some spell synergy, so that's why you care about it. I think the stat line's too bad to expect to be necessarily running it in like any tempo-based mage deck. Even if you are getting a spell out of it, maybe you run it in a like Cyclone Mage or something so that you have more spells to use all at once on one turn or something like that. But as I've said before, I don't think that Cyclone Mage is going to be able to keep up anymore because it hasn't been keeping up lately, and it's not really getting any support that makes a lot of sense to empower it. So altogether, I'm pretty unimpressed with this, unless we're having a very minion-heavy mage deck that wants some specific spells that this would tutor that spell specifically, and I don't see that happening. For now, I think I'm just going to give it 2 stars. And then for warrior, we have a 1-drop Imprisoned Ganarg. So 1 mana, 2/2 demon, dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, equip a 3/2 axe. So you're getting a Fiery War Axe on turn 3 for free, and you're getting a 1 mana 2/2 or you're getting a 2/2 on the same turn. You just have to set this up on turn 1. So in the same way that all of these dormant cards have that huge downside of if you don't play it on the turn that it's kind of costed at, that is going to be a lot weaker. But if you do play it on turn 1, then this looks pretty good. Getting a free War Axe on turn 3 will definitely help you keep up with the board, protect your own minions really well, and the 2/2 is definitely not bad to have either. This could also definitely be an option in a control warrior to try and have this weapon to be dealing with threats early on, and you're not feeling bad about the 2/2 there either. It just seems fine. I just don't know if it's going to be quite as impactful as we need it to be. There's definitely other ways that we can get better weapons and such, and get stats on a little bit faster in warrior. I think I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Now I believe we only have neutral cards left, so let's go through the remaining cards. So common card, Scavenging Shirvara, 6 mana, 6/3 demon. Battlecry deals 6 damage, randomly split among all other minions. So it's kind of like a non-Highlander Reno that has a more aggressive stat line and can hit your own stuff, and the health is really bad, and this card sucks. In the best case scenario, there's like 1 to 2 minions on board that you're specifically going to be targeting, and this 6 damage is going to be able to remove. And then you get this 6/3, but you're still paying 6 mana for that effect, and this is going to be easily removed, and there's no way this is getting play. This is a 1-star card. Then we have Waste Warden, a epic card, 5 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, deal 3 damage to a minion and all other minions of the same type. So this is a very niche card. You're going to want to use it against specific things. It might work well against demons, because we're going to see a lot of demons perhaps, or beasts, because we saw that on the stream they wanted to use it against the hunter who was running basically only beasts. But I think most decks are going to have a varied amount of minion types, and the amount of damage you'll have to deal to make it worth being a 5 mana 3/3 might be a bit much. Dealing 3 to 2 minions might be enough. 3 minions, then you're feeling pretty nice about it. But like, I'm just really worried about how narrow the applications are, the timings on when you're going to be playing this, how you're really going to be finding a deck that runs basically only one type of minion. And also, if you are trying to counter demons and you have any demons, or trying to counter beasts and you have any beasts, or any of these things, then that's going to backfire too. I think there's going to be too much variation in the meta. If we get swarmed with like all the same kind of thing, maybe it'll work. Like, obviously we still have Dragon Hunter, it'll be a thing, so maybe dragons will be something you can target. I think if you really are hating on one deck and you want to put in a tech card for something like that, that's like really one type heavy, then maybe you would run this, but I think in most cases you won't. So I think it'll be very meta dependent if you ever run this. I don't expect necessarily that you will. So I'm going to give it 2 stars. If the meta ever reaches a point where most decks are heavily reliant on one type of minion, this might get a chance. We have Burrowing Scorpid, 4 mana, 5/2 beast. Battlecry, deal 2 damage. If it kills the target, gain stealth. So Jungle Panther is a 4/2 stealth for 3 mana. So you're paying this extra mana for 1 extra attack and then dealing 2 damage. So how strong is this dealing 2 damage effect? The thing is that you can't just play this on the board. You do need a target for it, and 2 damage on turn 4 coming in from turn 3. You might not have a ton of targets depending, it really depends on how wide your opponent goes, how many small things they're going to have. You can go face with this 2 damage to try and finish off your opponent if that ever becomes relevant, but that doesn't seem too great. I think if you don't get the stealth, the stat line is just too bad, and I think being able to line this up to get the kill is not going to be incredibly consistent. It's going to depend on if we have so many 2 health minions or things, or 1 health minions. You can kill those as well. But initially speaking, I don't think that this will see play when things start out. We saw it in that stealth rogue type of list with the secrets and stuff, but I don't think this will actually fit in that generally. I think that this will be too awkward. It won't line up every time you want it to line up, so you'll just be waiting around because you probably won't just play this on 4 for that 5/2 body and that just deals 2 damage. So yeah, I'm going to give this one 2 stars. Then we have Dragon Maw Sky Stalker, a common card, 6 mana, 5/6 dragon, Death Rattle, summon a 3/4 Dragon Rider. Obviously the Dragon Rider won't be a dragon. So this seems like a decent dragon card. We're adding a little bit more dragon to our expansions after Descent of Dragons, and the Year of the Dragon is already over. So we can push this more dragon decks like this, though this doesn't look exceptionally impactful on those archetypes. It's definitely not a bad card, but it is a little bit slow, and the amount of impact that it's going to have for the cost that you're playing, like obviously it's got a decent amount of stats for what it's presenting here, but I don't think it's going to be able to keep up with a lot of the other things we're seeing. I don't even think it's going to fit in dragon decks. I think you'll have better options than this, but it's definitely something we'll see off of Draconic Lackeys, so that is significant, and other ways that dragons get generated, like Dragon Queen Elixstraza. I think it may line up in a deck that's both Death Rattle and Dragon oriented, but I can't think of one like that. So maybe in the future this will line up somewhere. I don't think it's terribly bad. I think I'm going to give this 2 stars. Then we have Soulbound Ashtongue, common card, 1 mana, 1/4. Whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. So 1 mana, 1/4 is definitely a good stat line for a 1-drop. It's better than a 1/3, slightly. And 1/3 minions have been really good. This drawback is really significant. We saw it working decently well against some 1 health minions from their opponent on the stream. But I feel like in a lot of cases, if you're running this to counter 1 health minions, decks that run a lot of 1 health minions are probably decks that want to put a lot of damage on you. This removing a few 1 health minions is not going to help you very much. Maybe you want this because you can put it in like the priest deck that will want the extra health so they can put more buffs onto it without it dying as easily, which I can see that potentially being a thing, but I don't have almost any faith in that. Like, this is probably way too much of a drawback. We saw a card with a similar effect before, which was a 4/3 for 2 mana, and that's a much more aggressive stat line. I think having a more aggressive card for this drawback would make a lot more sense because you're caring less about your health that way. You're just trying to end the game quickly. But yeah, it's just, I think it's going to be way too detrimental for anyone to consider running this for longer than 5 seconds. So I'm gonna give it 1 star. Then we have Frozen Shadow Weaver, 3 mana, 4/3, Battlecry, freeze a minion. So it's another neutral freeze a minion card. It's no Glacial Shard because it's not 1 mana. I think it's just fine. You're not going to run this anywhere though. So 1 star. And we have Felfin Navigator. It's a 4 mana 4/4 Murloc. Give your other Murlocs +1/+1. So this seems like a decent win more card for these Murloc decks. Obviously, Murlocs are all about the win more thing, because if they're not winning more, then they're not winning. So this might fit into some Murloc decks if you want to get that, like the 4/4 body's fine, so getting 1 +1/+1 wouldn't be too bad. Getting any more than that, you're going to feel good about this. You're potentially going to get better trades out of this so that you can keep your board going. So I can definitely see it fitting into a Murloc deck. I've already said I don't think Paladins are going to be running Murlocs, but maybe Shamans are going to be running Murlocs because they still have their Murloc package. I'll give it 3 stars. I'll say that Shaman might look at it, and maybe Paladin does somehow manage to make Murlocs work. We'll see. Then we have Disguised Wanderer, common card, 4 mana, 3/3 demon, Death Rattle, summon a 9/1 Inquisitor. So you're getting 10 stats on the second part, which is like a 5-drop, except it's got 1 HP, so it's really easy to kill. So a 3/3 that gives you a 9/1 is really interesting. It looks really fun as a card, but 1 health is like so easy to remove, so that Death Rattle is almost negligible. Against a mage, they're just gonna ping it and it'll be dead. So I definitely like it. It looks fun. I like the art and stuff, but yeah, no one's gonna play this either. 1 star. Then we have Ethereal Og Merchant, another common card, 1 mana 2/1, Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a minion, give it spell damage +1. So this is another Og Merchant. We saw the one that gave Divine Shield before. This one gives us spell damage. I think the Divine Shield is hell of a lot better. Giving spell damage by dealing 1 damage doesn't seem exceptionally great. It is 1 mana for a spell damage though, which is pretty good. So I can't say that it's impossible that we'll see this happen. I think 1 mana for 1 spell damage is not something that we should ignore. But I don't initially see any way that we're going to make that have an incredible impact. So I'm going to give this 2 stars because there is some expectation that a cheap spell damage like this could do something. Then we have Rust Sworn Cultist, 4 mana, 3/3, Battlecry. Your other minions have Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 demon. So this is kind of like Soul the Murloc. They're not Murlocs, they're demons. And it's on a stick on this 3/3 body. That makes it sound pretty good. You can definitely use this to strengthen your board and keep it alive better. Like in the same way that you could say it's kind of like Soul the Forest. It's 4 mana and you're getting the 1/1s instead of 2/2s, but you're getting the 3/3 as well. But I think where Soul the Murloc fits really well into a deck because you play some stuff out and then you throw that on top to keep your board protected. This one's 4 mana, so it's much harder to fit in and looks much more like a win more card for when you already have a bunch of stuff on board and you're just going to throw this there and get the chance to bring it back afterwards. I don't think this is going to be a card that anyone's going to be running in any decks. It's just too much mana for that effect, so I'm going to give it 1 star. Then we have Infectious Sporling. This is a rare card. 1 mana, 1/2. After this damages a minion, turn it into an Infectious Sporling. So this is really fun looking. It turns everything it touches into itself, and then that will in turn touch something and turn it into itself. I love the design, but no one's going to play this card. 1 star. Then we have Rocket Og Merchant. 1 mana, 2/1, Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a minion, give it Rush. So now we have a slight downgrade from a Goblin Lackey, which just tells you how freaking good lackeys are. So you're getting 1 extra attack, but you have to deal 1 damage to the minion that you're giving the Rush to instead of giving it +1 attack itself. I can definitely see some ways that this could see play. I think it's more likely to just be a good arena card. As with a lot of these cards, they're probably just good arena cards. Like, Goblin Lackeys definitely make you happy when you get them, but I don't necessarily think you'd want to run a deck slot for this, and it's going to be dealing 1 damage to your minion either way. Especially if you did have a Divine Shield minion or something, and then you're removing your own Divine Shield with this. I think I'm going to give it 1 star. It's a fine effect. I just don't think it's actually going to line up with any like combo or anything like that. And that's probably the only way you'd ever make it work. Then we have Rust Sworn Initiate. 2 mana, 2/2, Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Imp Caster with spell damage +1. So I don't think that there's any significance to the fact that the Imp Caster has +1 spell damage. And this is just a 2/2 that summons a 1/1 when it dies. That's not going to be strong enough for anybody. So 1 star. Then we have a rare card, Blistering Rot. 3 mana, 1/2. At the end of your turn, summon a Rot with stats equal to this minion's. So from the way it's worded, it's not creating a copy, it's creating a different type of Rot, one that doesn't copy itself. This one, the original has to live in order to continue copying. You could put some buffs on it, but this initial stat line is so low, you'd have a lot of trouble with something like that. I think there could be a way that this could work if you manage to get a lot of cheap buffs on it. And I did see someone thinking about doing Lady Liadrin, getting a bunch of those Librams of Wisdom, I believe is the one it is, on top of this for the 0 mana. But it still dies to 1 removal card. You're devoting a lot of resources to that, so yeah, I don't even think it's worth 2 stars. I'm going to give it 1 star. It's a meme card. And then we have our last card, Terror Guard Escapee. 3 mana, 3/7 demon. That's pretty good. Battlecry, summon 3 1/1 Huntresses for your opponent. So because they would trade into you, and that would leave you with 3/4, that's kind of how they justify the fact that it's a 3/7. But if you used like a Whirlwind effect or something, that could be pretty good, and this can definitely disrupt res pools like in Res Priest. So this could be a counter to something like that. Though initially I don't think this card necessarily makes a ton of sense on its own. You might run it in a warrior deck where you're doing Whirlwind effects just so that you get like a 3/6. But I don't know if that's necessarily strong enough for you to care that much. So I'm going to give it 2 stars. I think it's mostly going to be used to disrupt res pools for priests and stuff like that. So that's all the cards. We finally got through every one of the cards that got revealed. So I will be doing a final card review after I've managed to edit these card reviews and put them up. So by the time you're seeing this, I'll probably be starting to work on that. I will put it out before the expansion comes out, so you can expect that. We'll just be going quick through each of them, looking at all the archetypes as a whole now, and seeing what we think of that. I'll probably do it class by class, and then the neutral cards on their own. So you can expect that soon. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like if you did. Comment down below what you thought of the cards that we saw today. And please subscribe for more of my content in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much. And I'll see you guys in the next one.